So, interesting enough, there are technically some instances of buy swapping within the VTubing community. I know there was a HoloLive 2022 April Fool's event where the council, well, they switched voices, but it kinda does give off the vibe that something's up. I know there are similar videos within HoloLive, but I know other VTubers like Vidal and Neuro, and some members within Nijisanji End have dwelled within this topic. Overall, it's interesting how they can pull off as each other, just for shits and giggles. Yes, with the rise of AI content, I have come across some bias switching content. I haven't used a character AI in a while, but coming back to the website, there's now a lot of AI chatbots focused on bias switching, or possessions, or whatever. The images, on the other hand, I guess they're nothing too knowable, or interesting to talk about. Not to get confused with Freaky Friday. This movie is about a teenage girl and a serial killer. However, the magical dagger he possesses ends up switching their bodies. Now she has 24 hours to switch back before the swap becomes permanent, leaving the killer in their old body, pretty much killing people. I haven't seen this yet, but it looks rather interesting. I wouldn't want a serial killer ending up in my body just to murder people. So the trailer for this just recently came out, and the Netflix trailer is where it's pretty much a bunch of old friends switching bodies, pretty much for a game. And of course, they decide to explore each other's new bodies, but oh no, things go wrong. It's a body swatching horror comedy. Should be rather interesting. Maybe I'll give it a watch if I have any other reason to regain my Netflix subscription. At the time of making this video, there are currently six body switching videos. For those who are not aware, SML is basically a puppet show web series that's mostly aimed for adults, but draws the attention to younger fans. It used to have Mario characters until Nintendo, well, you know. Anyways, out of all the videos, I personally enjoyed 1-2 Switch Buys the most, just because it's the most creative and funny out of all of them. I'm actually surprised there isn't much body switching or possession games out there. But I'm guessing you can possess other people to defeat enemies? Although, this game has a bit of a controversy, where you can pretty much tell from the like to dislike ratio. I'm not gonna get into it, but I'm guessing the game is not going to do that well. Okay, so this one is really interesting. There's this video on YouTube called The Unexplored Ethics of Buy Swaps. While it's not well known, I recommend giving this a watch if you're a fan of buy swapping, because it has a lot of good points, especially in the comments section. There's even an episode of a TV show that actually explores this sort of idea, and while I'll talk about it later in the iceberg, it was honestly a dark episode, but yeah. Simpsons also explored this idea, where the episode where Homer comes back to life, that's pretty much an example. Like, imagine being alive for 1 minute and then having your body stolen by divine force. It's kind of really messed up. Like, what if you switch places with, let's say, with your friend, and they suddenly die in your body, or you die in theirs? Like, what happens next? Like, is the swap permanent, or can you switch back? There are a lot of questions left unanswered once we delve into this topic, and that's something I find interesting. Technically, I guess this counts as a soul transfer movie, given that the scientist uses alchemy to transfer his soul into a doll. Although the robot can also steal souls as well. So, yeah, this technically counts. Honestly, it's an underrated movie. You should give this a watch if you have the chance. I actually remember liking this show when I was young, but I used to be a huge fan of this franchise. But I remember seeing a snippet of the episode, which is something. Also, I didn't realize that there was a season 3 back then, so yeah. I actually didn't know about this until I mentioned the video a few entries ago. There was a controversy within this movie, which I get it though. I wouldn't want some weirdo stealing my body with malicious intent. Go watch a video if you're interested in the topic. I actually remember this. Like, it's an interesting movie, but they swap bodies by doing what? Yeah. If you're a fan of this genre, I'm sure you're aware of a YouTuber called 3 Degrees Off Center. They are rather well known for several of their videos. They've even collaborated with other well known body swapping YouTubers like Ren Adams. To this day, they're still uploading body switching videos, which is impressive. Yeah, there's a body swapping scene. I guess technically this is a body swapping movie, in the sense that they swap bodies with avatars, I guess to play the game. And I guess this is interesting. Also, apparently the cartoon show also had a body switching scene as well, so I might as well mention that. Oh yeah, oh god, I actually remember watching this movie. Like, imagine being in a coma and then having your conscience swapped with a cat. Like, I guess it's kind of cool. You get to do cat stuff, like hiss and throw up fur balls or whatever. But you're also stuck in the body of a cat, which I wouldn't want to be stuck as a cat. It has a lot of disadvantages. I've never seen this movie, but you know what this reminds me of? There's this Sonic animation, which I'm pretty sure it's based on this movie, where Sonic switches bodies with a dog, and it kinda gives off similar vibes. But yeah, watching a review of this movie, I'm kinda surprised how dark and grim it is. Honestly, I should watch this at some point. Thankfully it's not on this Disney Plus, but like, you can actually watch the whole movie on YouTube.
I can look at myself naked.
This movie was intended for children, right?
I don't think it was meant for anybody.
So the Nostalgia Critic review pretty much sums up this movie. But yeah, this actually has a better body switching scene than Velma, and it kinda makes more sense. Oh boy, I actually remember seeing the Buffy clip on YouTube back in the early days. Honestly, I was actually obsessed with that clip. Honestly, it's an interesting way to switch places. It was more interesting seeing how Faith pretended to act like Buffy. There was also that other scene where they switched bodies again. Although I'm not too familiar with the show Charmed. If it's good, feel free to let me know. I've seen this episode before, and given that the whole concept of this show is basically this kid getting a brain transplant, it's kind of weird how this is the only body swapping episode. If I remember correctly, the episode wasn't that great. Nothing too remarkable. I think I've seen a scene that involved a body swapping scene, but what's interesting about this is that they actually have several body swapping episodes. YouTuber Ranger Review made a top 10 episode ranking from the worst to best body swaps episodes. Cool stuff. In the episode Switcheroo, Jake and Haley have a Freaky Friday experience. There's also an episode Dragon Breath, where a soul-sucking Nyx sucks souls or switches souls between characters. So, besides that infamous scene, there's this one concept where this is pretty much a concept between a former scientist who finds himself trapped in pretty much a time travel experiment gone wrong, leaping to random bodies every week. Interesting stuff. So there are actually several scenes from the cartoons to the comics, but the one I'm more familiar with is the comic The Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock places his mind in Peter Parker's body. Kinda reminds me of that Out of Jimmy's Head episode, but like, it's pretty much less ridiculous. I mean, besides the fan content and fan art, Sumero has a number of body switching episodes and possession content out there, especially in the mission where you're supposed to possess others to convince Citaria to return to her hometown. In the later mission, however, the Traveler and Nahida also end up switching bodies just for a few moments. Rip Catherine though. Not surprisingly, There are also several body-switching content out there, which, yeah, figures. Like, it's pretty much filled with anime characters. How is that not surprising? Besides the fan art, I know there's like a few body switching episodes, but that's pretty much it. I've heard so many positive things about this show, so at some point I should really give this a watch. Plus, Dana Snyder voices Scratch, so that's always a positive. Given that this show has ghosts, it's obvious that there's gonna be a body switching or possession episode. Honestly, I've seen this episode and I kinda like it.
I'm gonna say the N-word. That's racist! You can't say the N-word!
Honestly, that video kinda fits the context for this episode. All I'm gonna say here is, it's rather a unique body switching episode. Although, it has a certain scene. But yeah. I mentioned about the Batman Brave and the Bold and Teen Titans episode earlier. But I know there are many instances of body swapping. Besides the Justice League Unlimited episode, there's also the episode from Action, the Batman Beyond episode, and even a good number of comics that have a decent amount of swap or possession content. The one I clearly remember though is a fan-made body swapping edit of a comic between Robin and Batgirl and Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. Overall, I say there's a good amount of body switching content out there. A Reddit thread mentions several forms of content, such as the Marvel team-up where Spider-Man and Miss Marvel switches bodies, the Mosaic comic, and the swap between Wolverine and Spider-Man. Out of all of them, however, my favorite one has to be the one between Doctor Doom and Tony Stark. Comic Explains covers the whole comic in detail, so I recommend watching that. So, originally I was gonna put this entry in the middle of the iceberg, but during my research of content, someone actually uploaded the whole movie just recently during the making of this video, and yeah, the whole movie has been found. Before that, it was basically a body switching movie between an elderly woman and a young woman. And there was only 15 minutes of it. Spoiler alert, this movie ends with the elderly woman switching places with another innocent woman. So, yeah, the ending is pretty messed up when you think about it. If you're a fan of body switching content, I recommend watching this. It's pretty good. Basically, a body swapping manga between a high school student and a witch. I've never read it, but I do remember seeing this all throughout YouTube at some point. This one is rather interesting. It's a body swapping episode between two robots. Like in Futurama, however, where Bender switches places with one of the human characters. Here, Proto Boy switches his motherboard with Robot Boy's motherboard, I guess, tossing the old one in the trash alongside the body. Interesting stuff. I will say this though, I hate Gus. Like, I fucking hate that kid. God, I hate him. Pretty much the only thing here is the body switching episode between Casey and April. That's pretty much it. Dr. Two Brains tries to swap bodies with the mayor, but accidentally switches with Word Girl. What's interesting about this episode is that there's pretty much a storyboard video on YouTube, which is pretty nice. Other than that, it would be pretty weird having two brains in your body. Given that this world has magic, I'm not surprised that there's like a few body switching scenes. Unfortunately, there are pretty much two instances I can find. So, unless you guys know any, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Oh, and yeah, there's basically the fan art, too. Lucina seems to be the more popular character when it comes to body switching content. So, yeah, given that the art can go full on NSFW, take that as you will. I'm not too familiar with its manga, but apparently it's an Alice in Wonderland mixed with Isekai with a hint of body swapping. It honestly sounds like a cool concept. If you ever been on this forum, this is one of the more popular forums where pretty much anyone can discuss body switching content and other related content out on here. There's a large catalog of content and recommendations here, so I recommend checking it out. It's really interesting. Huh. I've never really... Yeah, then again, Fred Flintstone wasn't Billy and Mandy, so I guess the body swapping scene is not out of the question. This is a rather popular body switching game where I think a high school student named John ends up switching bodies with random people using a remote. From what I could tell, there are many scenarios out there, and you're free to do with whatever you want with it, since it's an open source game. It's one of the more popular visual novel games out there. I mean, this is really self-explanatory. There are some SFW art for body switching or possessions or whatever similar concepts are there. The NSFW art is pretty much more popular, with there being a Rule 34 section on body switching. Okay, so I don't recommend looking this up if you're not that into that sort of stuff. Okay, this is rather weird. I don't consider this as a body swapping or possession kind of thing. Like, it feels like you're more likely wearing a skin of a person. Kinda like how people like to wear fur from their animals. I guess, in a way, you're most likely going to wear a costume, and in some instances, it kind of feels like being in a different body. I don't know. This kind of stuff doesn't make any sense, but yeah. This is an interesting concept. This was introduced in the Scooby-Doo movie by a YouTuber by the name of the Demon Queen of Spooky Island. Used to be known as Body Swapper. Is known for making, I guess, demons possessing people? It's a weird concept, but I guess these creatures have their own ulterior motives. Of course, this site has a lot of art. In the way, when it comes to pretty much the genre for this video, there is a lot of art. And I mean, a lot of art. So yeah. I've only been on the site a few times, but it's basically the modern DeviantArt. Same with both sides. There's actually a body switching content tag, but it's a little more difficult to search unless you're on the English side of the site. The website is rather well known for their art, but I'm not calling it X. It's such a dumb name. Anyways, with the art community, they have a lot of NSFW art related to body switching, possessions, and similar content. They have SFW art as well, but that's pretty much it. Surprisingly enough, there is body switching content, but there's also subreddits within the sort of genre. I had to advise that some communities are NSFW, but yeah, other than that, there is a decent amount of stuff here. This has to be the most messed up way to get a brain transplant. Basically, in Wolfenstein the New Order, depending on who you choose, Wyatt or Fergus, one of them could have their brain extracted, and the other one pretty much survives. The one you have their brain extracted will later have their brain placed in a robot body, a powerful one at that. I would not recommend watching this for the faint of heart. I don't know if I should consider this as a body swap, but basically, it's transferring a mind of a person into a foreign alien, only because the planet, is pretty much poisonous to humans. Also kind of an interesting concept. From what I can tell, this is a movie where a black man invites his white girlfriend into the countryside to meet her parents. Not to spoil the movie, but revealed that brain transplanting is involved, and things kinda get dark really quickly. Interesting movie, I should give this a watch, although I wouldn't want some weirdo trying to do some kind of brain transplant without my consent. I actually remember seeing this around YouTube at one point, which I will say, it kinda gets awkward at a certain scene. Basically a boy swapping film between two people who hate each other, which, nothing much to say about it. I know sorta stupid reacted to this movie at some point, but that's all pretty much I know. Imagine if Spider-Verse had a buy switching film where you can pretty much switch buys of your alternate self through verse jumping. I don't want to spoil anything here, but like, I could tell just by watching a small preview that this movie is incredibly interesting. I should also give this a watch at some point. Okay, I'm using a test microphone for this part. But yeah, so I know Sonic the Hedgehog has had a few entries. I know Sonic X has like a buy possession episode. And I know there's like a few pieces of content out there that covers either buy swapping or possession content out there. I even talked about the video that talks about the switch between Sonic and the dog. I also remember a fanfiction that pretty much it was like a buy swap between classic Sonic and classic Tails. I even remember like how in the fanfiction Knuckles was like, "Hey, how did you not defeat Eggman?" Uh, yeah, that's all that I can pretty much think of when it comes to the franchise. But there's something I'm missing. Feel free to let me know.